Good afternoon, folks. Absolutely a pleasure to be moderating this session for us. It's really is a vast topic that we're going to cover today. Absolutely from what creates value to the business to how do we energize our people. And it can't be more timely than this. I mean, we're all literally living through an unprecedented event which is happening around us. A health crisis has snowballed into a financial crisis for us. And all of us as leaders in our businesses have been consumed in sort of working with our business teams, navigating our businesses, and finding our way through the events happening around us. I mean, some of the events are really stark. You'll all be reading about this, but a few highlights if I could share. Uh, India's unemployment used to be in the zone of 7-8% until March 2020. It zoomed all the way to 22% in April, May 2020. We've all seen a GDP decline unprecedented in our lifetime of 24% year on year for the quarter which has gone by. The stock market collapsed by 24% and then has scaled back to that level. We've never seen oil being traded in negative dollars per barrel. So everything which is happening around us is just surreal and unreal at the same time. And that is really where, in my assessment, a finance leader has to step forward and, in a way, take charge along with the CEO to navigate the business and to find the way through this crisis for the business. And I'm really happy to have some really esteemed colleagues along with me out here on this panel, with whom I'm going to engage into a conversation so that we can share with you some of the wonderful stuff that they've done, as well as they will speak to you about how do they see this unfolding as we move forward. Uh, the real estate sector in India has always been a challenging sector in India. And as money becomes dearer and as consumer confidence ebbs, that's a sector which probably suffers the most globally. Uh, the one sort of organization or industry whose fortunes literally go up and down is the escalator industry. Okay, and yeah, I'm joking, but it's true, isn't it? When the real sector moves up and down, it's the escalator industry which is going to experience a similar sort of bumpy ride. Uh, it's great to have you, Sandhya, here along with us on the panel. It must have been really challenging for you to navigate your business through this uncertainty. And I'm sure the business must have looked at you to sort of help business get a sense of what to expect. How do we go about predicting and forecasting what will come about? Where should we put our resources? And what's the sort of mindset that you should work with? Uh, 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 could I request you to sort of kickstart this panel conversation with providing us an insight into the challenges that your organization lived through and some of your thoughts on navigating the uncertainty and the changes that you brought about in your organization?
Okay, let me start. Personally, I'm a die-hard optimist. With that being true, the pandemic has definitely crushed me a lot in my thought process initially. I couldn't ever imagine that person who was 14 hours in office could be stuck full day in home, in four walls literally, and we were not moving at all. So I would say, personally and professionally as well, it has been very very depressing for some time initially, but later on, with the kind of work that we have, it kind of ironed out. And really, if I see, as a finance professional, we didn't have much of a time to have pity party types. So we quickly got back on our thought process, I would say, and changed from being a new business focused to a service business focus. And that was one of the major, I would say, shifting the gears for the organization. And this was one of the main pillars, I would say. Mainly because, as you rightly mentioned, Neelesh, the elevator kind of construction industry and elevator go hand in hand. And I would say, even though the GDP fall was 24%, construction industry fall was 50%. It was higher than even the trade and the hotel industry, which was at 47. So definitely the times are bad, but we focused on the recurring business, from two aspects. One, definitely providing better services, and second is through IoT, Internet of Technologies, through our product, which helped us to kind of navigate this time better. In terms of what we could have done initially was more cost management, but then later on it started with how do we plan the business and what do we show as a scenario for our business people to focus upon. So we did scenario planning as early as first week of April, a traffic light analysis on the green, red, and yellow scenario. That is green being very optimistic, yellow was mainly being on the China model, and red being on worst case what happens. And I would say that helped the business to focus on, and we definitely were working more with the business to find out that how we can partner well at every step. So be it being in project business, payment terms is one of the crucial focus areas. So we ensured that credit assessment was done for all the projects. We ensured that the focus was also all the time on improving the payment terms, or at least securing the payment terms, so to say, in all cases. So this helped the business to focus on the scenario planning. um, the other key was definitely communication to all, overall employee well-being. I am handling IT, so it was one of the major criteria was also working from home, making it comfortable for all. So that was also one of the challenges that we had initially. I wouldn't say the organization had thought that everyone should have a laptop, because this was a basic BCP, I would say, which was not in place. So all the BCP plans were thrown out of the window, and we had to immediately kind of move to the whole laptop culture, even for all the lowest cadre of employees. And that was very crucial at that point in time. And ensuring that all of us are connected helped us to move forward.
Indeed.
In terms of, I would say, our finance strategy was also focused. We had planned it initially during the year, and three pillars were main: digitization, definitely improving profitability, and third was how to have people who are fit for future. We call it F3, because that is very important at this point in time. With the AI coming in, the RPS coming in, it's very important that we work on those areas, that how our same people can navigate through the transition phase and be well equipped for the newer roles, I would say. Digitization definitely main pillar, and I would say because we have multiple portfolio, it becomes all the more important. And changing gear, kind of one of the areas was predictive analysis. How do we ensure that the service business, whom do I go to, what is the category of customer who will support me first? Like if I'm going to a mall, the mall is not opening soon, so we had to work on predictive analysis, who can take our business forward, ensuring that we have a regular set of income which will suffice to pay the regular expenses. So these were predictive analysis. And to have predictive analysis, the most important part is the whole business having the same visualization as we at the top had. So we had enough communication on that. We are changing the gears, we are focusing on the existing business or the service business as we call, and ensuring that we have best of the manpower over there, ensuring that we give best of the services, and working on kind of removing bureaucracy to some extent. The decision making was quick, and this helped us to kind of sustain the pandemic and move forward. Although the vitals are showing improvement in July and August, so I see that it will be a good area, kind of positive trend going forward. That is what I strongly want to believe. Although there are two set of opinions. One is probably the demand now is more of pent up demand rather than the new demand being generated, especially in our industry. But being an optimist, I want to believe that it will go forward well. So from my side, I was I would say to that I have become more a business person than a finance person now. because I understand that if there's no business, I don't have anything to account for. And this pandemic really showed us that being a business or having a business mindset, even for the finance guys, is very important. And to some extent, I would say most of our people had a mentor who was from business team. Even we just started it last year December, and it helped the transition for all the finance community a bit easier than it would have been. So this is from my side. Thanks, Neelesh.
Lovely, Sandhya. I mean, so I work with Pepperfry. We are a very e-commerce company, and your entire theme around digitization and the push that technology has seen fully resonates with me. Just to share with the wide forum, uh, uh, the penetration of e-commerce in US went from 6% to 16% over 10 years, and then it went from 16% to 26% in the last 6 months. So that's the extent to which people have adapted technology. And your point around digitization completely resonates with me. Thanks, Sandhya, for sharing that with us.
Thank you,
Uh, uh, Interesting, I in one of my earlier role, I was running the global financial planning and analysis for Unilever. And what I realized was that uh, it is still relatively easier, if I could put it that way, to forecast the P&L. And it was a phenomenal challenge to forecast cash. And within cash, working capital was one item where getting your arms around it was always more challenging. When you work with India's number one corporate, okay, with a legacy of 100 plus years like Tata and have a very strong balance sheet, people would usually ask you, why is working capital or a cash a problem at all for you? Okay, and we have the advantage of having Sambasivan, who is the CFO at Tata's with one of the Tata group companies. And I think he carries on his shoulders phenomenal responsibility, not just to manage the Tata's balance sheet, but to support the ecosystem, particularly in a crisis situation like this. So Sambashivan, really, could you just give us insight into what is it which was happening in a corporate like yours? How did you sort of grip working capital and cash in your organization? And how did you really stretch out beyond your organization to support the smaller businesses? And how do you sort of looking forward see bigger corporates working collaboratively with smaller organizations so that the entire ecosystem can thrive and survive going forward? So really some sort of insight from you will be really appreciated. Sir, you're on mute, sir. Lovely.
Thank you, Neelesh, and thanks, Sandhya, for that excellent optimism shown in your presentation. It was really heartwarming to hear that we are still. I am also in your camp in the sense that I am also an inveterate optimist. So first is that so we are proud to be part of the Tata Group, but we are a very small company. We started about 14 years back. We are entering our 14th year of operation. So relative to a Tata Motors or a Tata Steel or something like that, TataSky is a relatively small entity, and it is a joint venture between Tata's and Disney's. Obviously, the majority, 51% shareholding from Tata Sons, but it is a joint venture company. It is not a 100% Tata-owned entity, just as a matter of clarification, which I think people are aware it's in the public domain. Okay, so we are a small company. We are a B2C company, and we directly deal with the customers. So for us, the impact, the main impact, so I will restrict myself to the subject of cash. But there are various other things which we did, like automation, digitization, all this business partnering, business mindset, and all those things. I'm not talking about that. And also employee welfare. So I will not talk about, I will talk about how we managed cash. So typically in a TataSky scenario, we are in a prepaid model, meaning the customers pay the cash and they use the services. If the cash becomes zero, as you would know, then you recharge with the additional cash, and the recharge mechanism works. So here the recharging by the individual customers, we are talking about millions of customers, is an important source for getting the money into the company's kitty. So when there is a COVID situation, the first thing is that how will the customer go to the dealer and recharge? That's the first question we have to ask ourselves, right? Because if people are in a lockdown situation, and they cannot recharge, then they cannot watch television, right? So, and the money doesn't come to us as well, right? So that's a very important question. So I'll just go a little bit farther in the back. When demonetization happened, we were about 30% through online. So yes, people do recharge through online. You are talking about 1626. We were at 30%. We slowly increased up to 50%. So while the COVID happened, just before COVID, we were in the early 50s, which means 50% of the customers were not going to the dealer or distributors premises or their shops and getting the recharge done, which means that they were recharging from their home using this online mechanism. That is only 50%. The remaining 50%, which is again millions of people, were somewhere moving out of their home. They have to go to the dealer and pay the money, and the dealer will then recharge, and then these guys can watch television. So how does this work now? That's a very big thing, which means that if the recharge doesn't happen, my collection becomes half. If 50% of the guys don't recharge. So that is the first big question. So luckily we had a lot of what you can say IT wherewithal and robustness of IT systems and other things. Even if the customer we were educating the customer, a lot of customers who were not recharging through the electronic mode or through this mode, we were educating the customers through SMS and other things. We did a lot of stuff. I'm not getting into the details, so that customers are encouraged to download the mobile application and do the recharge on their own, or use a Paytm, or use a credit card or a debit card or any other method, so that 50% odd went up to 80%. So that was in a span of 2-3 months. This is a big shift in the behavior. A 30% increase when your normal increase every month is say 1/4% or 0.5% is what you would know as an increase. So that's one important, I would say, cash flow management which we had to do. And also our backend systems have to be robust enough, ready to handle this kind of sudden surge in volumes. If 50 is going to 80, so imagine the pressure on the system. So many extra customers are going to, there should not be any queue. People, once they recharge, they should be able to immediately watch television. Within 5 seconds of recharge, the television has to start working, which means that the entire system has to work for that higher volume, right? So there is no queue, backlog is not there. Sandhya would know, she's heading IT as well, how difficult it is to scale up overnight in terms of these kind of volumes, handling these volumes. So that is one big thing which we had to do. Second big thing, what I think you also alluded, is that we took a call for managing the payments of some of the smaller vendors, as you rightly mentioned. We have larger vendors and we had smaller vendors, obviously. So larger vendors, we did not, fortunately, we did not have an issue relating to the cash flow in terms of the forecasted amounts, because what happened during this COVID was a lot of people were staying at home. Therefore, a lot of customers started watching television who were earlier not watching television. They were coming back. So our growth was faster during this COVID situation than before COVID, let us put it that way. Okay. So which is a very unlikely scenario for most of the industries. So while we were not getting newer customers, the older customers were coming back because people staying at home wanted to watch television. So therefore, the cash flow was not an issue. Only thing is, how do we get the cash? How do we get the online things? So that was the issue. And using that, we also said that some of the smaller vendors and smaller partners, we said that we will make some advance payments or even before the month. So we did take a call on certain smaller vendors and said that, okay, in the month of March, in the month of April, that is one thing which we did in a big way. And second thing we also did is that we are also having a lot of what you can say outsourced agencies for our call centers. When I say call centers, we are talking about people close to 3, 4, 5,000 people are either receiving calls or making calls to the customers. So that's a very large setup. And typically what happens is that the payments to them are based on the number of calls which are handled by these agencies. So obviously in a lockdown situation, when people are sitting at home, they are not coming to the office. Like what Sandhya mentioned, not all the agencies have given laptops to the people. Yes, there were some laptops and some percentage of the people had been given laptops to work from home. But still most of them were in desktop. But later on we arranged for laptops. But for the initial period, when there were no laptops, obviously our abandoned calls, so to say, went up. When you say abandoned calls, people were trying to reach the call center, but there is nobody to pick the call because they are all sitting at home. And the computers are in the office. So that is one thing. So then what happens is that when I have to pay at the end of the month, when I have to make payments for these large agencies, what do? If they go by their actual calls handled, the payment will be say 10, 20, 30%, depending on the volumes of calls handled compared to the previous months. So we took a kind of a relatively generous call and said, okay, we will find a via media solution. So we will give some kind of an algorithm based on which at least they all should be able to make payment of salaries to the people who they are working with. And there should be something extra. So that is something which we worked out and made sure that the payment during this period was not exactly based on the calls handled, which was as per the contract. But we did relax those conditions and made sure that the agencies also were not going out of pocket. So that is the second piece which I thought we had done for an interim period till the volumes came back, because now we are back to the original volumes. I'm now talking about the initial 1 or 2 months basically, which I'm talking about here. So these are the two, I would say, top of the mind things which you have done. With that, I will stop because I've already taken 7 minutes of the time. And thanks, Neelesh, for this.
Thanks, Sambasivan. Yeah, I mean, it has absolutely been unprecedented. The level of different type of actions that we've all had to take in the business, from supporting co-partners with us and accepting a level of non-performance to really rethinking the way we work. I mean, you spoke about, and Sandhya spoke about people not having laptops. From there, the world is shifting towards work from home. More and more of us are now, I mean, all of us I can see around this call seem to be at our residence taking this calls from home, which was something which was unthinkable until just about a few months back. So we definitely are entering into a frontier, okay, which is something which has not been really familiar to us, and which maybe actually our entire sort of mindset would have rejected the whole concept of working from home. Human beings are social animals, and office is a natural social interaction point. I mean, there are more people usually at the coffee machine than at their desk. That's how offices function, and it's therefore relevant that Aparna, as you sort of speak to us, uh, uh, might be interesting to just speak about the sort of initiatives that you have taken in the business when the whole sort of ways of working is changing, when there is more work which is happening from home, and even as we cut cost with the direction of getting more and more people to work from home, how do you carry your teams? How do you ensure that the social bonding still happens? How do you ensure that the affinity with the office brand continues? So really over to you for your thoughts on the new ways of working, challenges from that, and really how are you looking to tackle those?
Thank you, Neelesh. I think I will take the topic a bit away from Sambasivan and Sandhya. Talk more about the employees than just working capital and revenue. Of course, that is important, but I think employees form an integral part of our organization, and they are as important as the revenue or cash. I was reading a survey actually recently. I read that 74% of the CFOs they are looking at changing the composition of workforce, which meant that they will have some employees permanently work from home for good in the coming future. Now, what is that? What is work from home now that it is a reality? What does that look? How does the organizations and the employees' future looks like? I would just talk about briefly some of the points that the organizations will have to take care of when they will be working from home for some more time and maybe for good. So the first thing I think the organizations will have to look at is basically rethinking the organization structure itself. So basically, the organizations will have to reconstruct and how they work, identify which are the people who can work remotely, which are the decisions and which roles can be carried out in person. So they would have to see that. This also has some positives. While they look at that, we will have a workforce composition. We can actually, what I understand recently, like I saw in Bangalore, a lot of my friends and colleagues have moved to their hometowns, which is because obviously it is work from home. So the accessibility to talent is not restricted to only to the larger cities. So it also we can even look at a globally we can look at it. We can look at a smaller cities for talent. So it's only a matter of matching the skill set with the right employee. That was my first thought. The second is that while the work is going remote, are these really effective? Is the work really being done in an effective way?
Now that comes to performance management. I think the way we used to, measure performance earlier on, just by swiping in and swipe out, that will completely go away in future. And I think now performance will be more output based. It will be like people would really have to match the, activities with output. So it's not really just coming to office and, going from office. That again, now that which with that will come to the skill enablement. Now skill enablement is something that we really have to work with employees. Now when the companies are completely going digital, are the employees ready to go digital as well? So that will play into a big role in, in the new organizations in the going forward post COVID. So we will really have to upscale the skills of the employees by digital learnings. So for example, in the last 6 months and always had, but we had like in Essilor, we had Essilor University relaunched. So it was like, encouraging employees to upscale their skills at this point of time. And also going forward, there are some rewards attached to it if they are able to, upskill this thing. The last, I think the most important change that organization is now facing is actually security and safety is now, it's taken a broader meaning. The companies are not only looking at just giving employees a salary, but they also need to ensure that the employees mental well-being is taken care of. For example, in SLR, we have, we've had insurance coverage covered. We've had many programs that has been launched recently. There's an enhanced sick leave. There is a additional financial assistance given to employees, flexible working hours. So all that actually helps the employee to kind of be settled in and feels more safer in an organization. So all this would change. And the last is basically the culture. Now, what is the culture that the organization is talking about? What is the culture that we are looking at? So the culture, it will be a major role. Now we are not meeting employees every day. So now probably we'll have more digital town halls. We are all talking digitally, right? More newsletters coming up. So we had programs like breakfast with CEO. So obviously we're not meeting our CEOs, but we're just sitting in our homes and just chatting up. So those kind of things will just talk about more engagement with employees. So all these things. Lastly, I just want to talk about what does it mean to a CFO while all this is happening in the company. How does a CFO, what does it really mean for a CFO? So the CFOs will definitely benefit in future by having the infrastructure cost less because most of the people will be working from home. But at the same time, I think the digital investment in all the aspects of the organization will whether it is a safety net for employees, whether it is giving them a right skill set, performance measure, that will also play as some part, in our profit and loss account, so that we will be having that cost as well. So that's it from my side, Neelesh. Thank you so much.
Lovely, Aparna. I mean, yeah, it's right. Uh, it's a huge event which has happened, and we've all sort of reacting to it. And usually, as the adage goes, in every challenge there's an opportunity, and it's nice that we all reflected on the challenges that we went through and how we've been sort of navigating through that challenge. There's somebody who's really worked for an extensive period of time across geographies, seen multiple cycles in life, and I think, Suzy, it might be really interesting for us to hear from you. How do you see this actually as an opportunity where the organizations can do something very different to keep their employees engaged, to carry their employees with you? So what would be your reflections on how is this an opportunity for the organization to actually carry their employees far more closely, galvanize their own employees around the organization?
Thanks, Neelesh, and it's an honor to be here with everyone. I'm going to try to share my screen and let me know if that works. So I just want to share with you a couple of slides.
It works, Suzy.
Okay. So when we're talking about employee performance and tying that to a corporate vision and a corporate performance, I want to share some ideas with you. I was at a company in 2008 during the subprime mortgage collapse, And as Neelesh mentioned, we are seeing an economic drop-off of 24% in India because of COVID. At that time, we had a drop-off of 20% in the volume of our business. And we developed this vision to become a profitable leader in our sector. And we were trying to do this turnaround during a huge drop-off in volume. And what I want to show is how we tied that corporate vision to the employee performance plan. And it started with the vision, which is very high level, and then we turned into a strategic plan with very detailed plans for each sector, what product lines we wanted to be in, what customers we wanted to be in, what geographies we wanted to be in. This business was in over 100 countries. So we had a very cohesive strategic plan. It included some cost cutting, but it included also some growth in some areas. And then that strategic plan was turned into a very detailed budget by line, obviously revenue, cost of sales, et cetera, by geography. And then that detailed budget was then translated into specific targets for each employee that their performance evaluation was tied to. So for example, if we had a goal to grow sales in a particular region, then the salespeople would have a specific performance goal that their commission or bonuses were tied to have 25% margin growth or 20% volume growth, what have you, by year end. And we put this all up on the wall so an employee could see how the specific action they were supposed to take was contributing to the overall corporate goals and strategies. If the person was in HR, their performance was to hire people at a certain salary for certain qualifications. If someone was in payables, they knew how they were going to be measured and how their performance was going to impact the corporate goals. This was incredibly effective in getting the employees engaged, letting them to understand why their contribution was important and to align everyone to meet what the corporate goals were. And we were able to achieve a 45% earnings improvement year on year during the 2008 economic collapse. And fast forwarding to apply this to today, it becomes really important to do that in today's environment because as others have mentioned, Aparna mentioned, we're not in the office together. So it's not as easy to talk to employees and tell them, you need to take this action now, you need to call this customer now. So it's even more important for them to understand the big picture, how they fit into it and how they're being measured. And Ms. Vora mentioned at the very beginning, the importance of finance creating critical scorecards. So it's clear to the business what we're driving towards and how we're measuring it, and employees understand how they're contributing to it. So this is obviously going to be important for the corporate performance, but it's also important, I'd argue, for the employee well-being. This graph shows a general correlation of employee performance compared to their stress level and level of engagement. So not surprising if the employee has tasks that are too simple, not challenging enough, they're kind of inactive and bored and not engaged, or if they don't understand how their performance contributes to the corporate goals, they're not engaged, or if their bonuses or commissions or compensation is not tied to these performance goals, they don't really feel aligned or motivated. So you'll see, this is where the lower parts of the curve, which are shown here, and it's described as lame stress levels or unhealthy stress levels. And the performance reflects that. Then you can see there's peak performance, whereas an employee who understands where the company is going, understands how he or she contributes to it, and is rewarded to meet those goals, and has the right skill sets and resources to deliver. This is where the stress level is high, but they're more productive. And you can see the difference of performance can be 30 to 50% for that employee. So the employee satisfaction is going to be higher, and of course the performance can be significantly better. And at one point I worked at a startup, and we used to have this written on our whiteboard as people walked in, that if we give 100% 365 days a year, we get 100% at the end of the year. If we only give 99% every day, over 365 days, that's only 2.6%. So the cumulative impact of this lack of discretionary performance, just being 1% less performance every day, makes a huge difference by the end of the year. So the point of it being that really important to align employee performance measurements with a proper scorecard to the corporate measurements to drive employee satisfaction and also corporate results. Thank you so much, Neelesh. That's all I wanted to share with the group.
Thanks, Suzy. That was really insightful, and I think it just empowers finance people to probably aspire for the HR roles in the organization. But that was really wonderful. Lakshmi, I'm really looking for you to guide us. We are 6 minutes away from our closing time. How do you want us to take this forward, Lakshmi?
Yes, thank you for that incredible session full of great insights. I think we can now move on to the Q&A. I'm just reading out the questions from our attendees today. We have a question from Himanshu Chabra. He asks, what are the expectations of industries from logistics industry in this challenging scenario?
So, I don't know, Sandhya, do you want to pick that up?
Yeah, definitely. I would say logistics for us has been crucial. And I, in fact, was incidentally talking to a pharma CFO some time back, and he mentioned that although drugs was, or like pharma industry was identified as under essential services, they did not have packaging material. And that's because the logistics people were not available. So I would say logistics is core to the whole business and to the whole movement. And one of the indicators also has been that the intercity or interstate sales has been higher, but state sales has been lower. So from that perspective, I would say I would want logistics industry to really be agile in terms of their workforce, also in terms of their availability, and probably try to be more cost effective, because this is the time where no one would want to spend a penny additionally. And unfortunately, I have seen in my own organization that the smaller players have not been able to sustain pandemic. There are many of them who have backed out. So I would say making, as they say in even in exercise or even in body workout, that your core should be strong. Here also your core should be strong in terms of your cash flows. Your balance sheet should be strong. So I would say strong networking overall would help the logistics industry.
Great. Thank you, Sandhya, for that. So we have a question from Vineet. How will textile and auto sector pick up in the next few months?
I don't know if there is somebody who specifically wants to pick that up. Uh, 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 I think if I could just sort of reflect on both the sectors, and let's look at what's positive and what's adverse for the sectors. I think if I start with auto, uh, public transport is something that more or less people will tend to avoid, given that's a place of contact with other people. And therefore, it's fairly likely that the automobile sector, specifically within that two-wheelers or the smaller cars, could actually see this as an opportunity coming their way. So that could be a positive trend for the automobile sector. Of course, it's a high ticket item, but then if the rate of interest continues to be low, then that again becomes opportunity to be able to afford an automobile, given that most of automobile gets purchased on loans. So those are the positive wins for the auto sector. The negative wins we are all conscious about, so I'm really not getting there, but that's the positive win for the auto sector.
May I offer a little bit of commentary on that? Comment on the auto sector in the short run. Absolutely agree with your comments. I want to share some anecdotes on the long run. I advise some private equity firms in US, and when COVID hit, I turned to them and said, well, maybe we should put a pause on our acquisition strategy because economic activity has stopped and people are sheltering in place and there's a lot of uncertainty. And they said, no, actually, Suzy, it's the opposite. We see this very much as a buying opportunity. In the long run, we're very bullish. And especially the auto sector, I want to mention, because you may have heard in US, a company called Nikola went IPO through a SPAC, and this has created a huge tidal wave of IPOs in the auto sector, particularly in electric trucks and electric buses. So in the long run, the market is very bullish. The financial market, private equity firms, venture capital firms are very bullish on investing in the auto sector, particularly in renewable energy or hybrid technology. But in the short run, absolutely agree. It's very, very uncertain and certainly a lot of risk. Sorry, just wanted to offer that perspective.
Lovely. So there we go, Shilakshmi.
Thank you. Thank you. So we have an interesting question from Yash Kalra, who asks, in today's scenario, most of the people are saying that conserve cash as cash is the king. But the biggest challenge in today's uncertain future is how to look at the CB or return of investment on the proposed investments and what should be the right payback period.
So, Samba here, can I take that question, Neelesh?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, by all means.
Yeah. So this is an important question for us as well, because whenever we go for any new projects, we always, everybody knows we look at return on investment and payback period, which is not different. So we asked ourselves this question: what happens to all the capex projects which are currently in vogue? Should we stop them? Should we delay them? Should we postpone them? There could be many decisions taken. But we as an organization, we took a call to continue with these projects. The simple reason being that because now in this situation, there is an opportunity for us to actually accelerate the project and also do it at a slightly reduced cost because of the because there are not too many people who are investing in capex projects. For example, you would have seen an announcement recently coming out of TataSky saying that we are now going to start manufacturing, start at least buying set-top box from Indian manufacturers. So we have so far been buying from outside of India. And therefore, with all these pandemic situations happening, we feel that there is a risk of some import restrictions which are happening. So therefore, we are now tying up with some partners so that they can set up shop in India. This means that there is an initial what you can say, kind of a cost element which is required, because transferring some production from outside India to inside India, we found to our dismay that the cost really actually shoots up a little, it doesn't come down, contrary to the general thought process, which is not the case in set-top boxes. So therefore, but we said that still we will go for this because the risk mitigation is more important. And also coming back to the ROI question, I think it is better to invest now, because if we believe that the technology is changing, if we believe that there is a need for accelerating, it is always better to invest ahead of the curve. And if you are particularly looking at innovation projects, that is what we are looking at, something new, which has not been there. It is all the more important for us to accelerate these kind of R&D so that we come out with this new innovation ideas quicker than later. So I don't think this is the right time, particularly if you have funds. The point is that, yes, you must be having access to funds. If you have access to funds, don't take only the demand not being there as a only indicator and not invest. But I think that I'm also an optimist, like Sandhya said. So I am sure the demand will come back next year. If not this year, 2021, 2022, surely the demand will come back to normal, or it may even shoot up beyond what it is today or what it was last year. So therefore, it is better to invest if you have the access to funds, and even if the ROI is not very, very favorable right now.
Can I just sort of supplement that with two learnings from e-commerce, perennially cash-starved organization? We are always low on resources. So two learnings from my point of view, and the terminology which gets very often spoken about in private equity is called as fail fast. So if, again, to Sambasivan's point, invest, okay, but after you invest, don't determine that your next point of review is going to be years later. Keep your ears to the ground. Be agile in monitoring how the investment is working, and be willing to change course.
Here the option is coming, start a video. Should I start it?
So that would be sort of my two bits. Fail fast is the way to think about it. Just the other point that Sandhya made, and I will re-emphasize that, keep a mindset of multiple outcomes coming about, because that will again help you, even as you make a decision, to be agile, because then you are not marrying yourself to only one outcome. you're thinking about multiple possibilities, and therefore you're reacting with speed.